Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So it is New Year's Eve, so I am prepping a ton of best of 2023 content. So I thought it'd be a fun idea to do the best trades of 2023. So basically, at last year's deadline and into the offseason and even some in-season trades, I have compiled what I think are the 10 best trades in terms of how much one team won. This isn't a best win-win trades. This is who fleeced the absolute shit out of the opposing team that they were trading with, or just who just got the better end, because there definitely are win-win deals where a team really benefits and a team kind of benefits. So these are the 10 best deals from one side of a team. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Up first, I got the trade deadline deal of Evgeny Dodonov heading from Montreal to Dallas for Denis Gurianov, who was pretty trash that year. Dodonov, it was just straight up 1-for-1. And Dodonov played very good on a Dallas team. He had 15 points in Dallas's final 23 regular season games. Then he had 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points in 15 games during Dallas's Western Conference Finals run. So he was very good to close the regular season. He was a decent piece in that run that they obviously were in the Final Four. And for a guy like Gurianov, who was just nothing for the most part. Montreal just wanted to kind of try him out because he was kind of young, see if they had anything. He hasn't played a single NHL game this season. He's a bum. He's a bum for the most part. And considering they got him at half retained, and now they have re-signed him at only $2.25 million for the next 2 seasons. This year he has 15 points in 33 games on an absolutely loaded Dallas forward core. This was just very cheap, nice work by Jim Nill to basically get off one bad contract and bring in an impact player that ended up helping lead them to the Western Conference Finals. Just a very good trade deadline deal that the elite general managers tend to make every single year. Next up, Casey DeSmith. The Casey DeSmith trade. He got traded, I think he got traded twice in the offseason, but this is the second one when he went from Montreal again to Vancouver for Tanner Pearson and a 3rd-round pick. I don't think this was, compared to Montreal for Dodonov, I don't even think that was a bad deal for Montreal. This definitely wasn't. They didn't really have a spot for DeSmith, considering they were going to run with the Monty and Allen combo. But when looking at this from Vancouver, Tanner Pearson's kind of just an irrelevant bottom sixer, and that 3rd-round pick isn't really that valuable to Vancouver. And they bring in DeSmith. Obviously, he had big goaltending troubles last year. A guy like Demko didn't really play to the level that you expect, and Spencer Martin as their backup wasn't able to perform when Demko went down, or even when Demko was playing. But DeSmith has stepped in and been one of the best backups in the entire league. He did have an off night recently, but before that he had a 920. He still has a 917 on the season, as well as a 258, as well as a 6-3-2 record in 12 overall games. He has really helped stabilize that Vancouver goaltending tandem. Him and Demko, in my opinion, are a top 5 goalie tandem as of right now. Casey DeSmith has been pretty erratic throughout his career. Last year was a down year, but he has been pretty solid in Pittsburgh. And I think going forward, him and Demko are going to be a solid tandem. And to get him for only a 3rd-round pick and a guy that was making like around $2.25 million in a Tanner Pearson bottom 6, get him out, that was a very good deal for the Vancouver Canucks. And number 8, I got the Jonas Korpisalo and Vladislav Gavrikov deal. This deal was a first-round pick in Jonathan Quick. Heading to Columbus for these 2 guys. And Korpisalo played fantastic in the regular season for LA. He had a 7-3-1 record with a 921 save percentage and a 2.13 goals against. Remember, LA last year was a wagon in terms of their overall domination of possession. I think they had the highest besides Carolina, they had like the highest expected goals percentage, highest Corsi. They just had the worst goaltending. Jonathan Quick was god-awful last year, obviously balling out this year. But it was such a glaring hole in net. And Korpisalo came in and really stabilized it. Yes, Korpisalo didn't play that good in the playoffs. I think he had like an 877. That whole series was just horrendous goaltending back and forth. And LA did end up losing in the first round. But the main piece of this was Gavrikov, who came in. People underrated the shit out of Gavrikov heading into the trade deadline. I kept on saying this guy is very good second pairing guy. Maybe he could even be a top pairing guy. His results just got absolutely caved in last year because he was playing top number 1 defenseman minutes on goddamn Columbus last year because Zach Werenski went down after like 10 games. So I really like the move in the time because I thought Gavrikov was going to slide really nice into that top four, and that is exactly what has happened. At the end of last season, he was very good for them. He is yet again very good. They ended up re-signing him at 2 years, around $5.6 million, and Gavrikov has been a key piece. So Korpisalo played good in the regular season, helped lead them safely into a playoff spot, and then Gavrikov has been a reliable piece to only go up a first-round pick, and obviously Jonathan Quick doesn't really matter. He didn't even end up going to Columbus, but it was a solid deal by Columbus getting a first round pick, but I think LA definitely won that deal, and it was a very good deal and has helped them going forward. Next up, the Shawn Dery trade. Shawn Dery, in terms of the Coyotes' perspective, they traded a second round pick in order to get Shawn Dery. He has 20 points in 29 games right now while playing 22-30 a night on an Arizona Coyotes team that is poised to make the playoffs for the first time since like the COVID bubble. Obviously, that was a little bit like fugazi, but in a long time, a legit playoff appearance from the Arizona Coyotes. And I don't think this is sustainable. I don't think he's a legit 50-plus point guy, but to get a top pairing offensive defenseman for a second round pick that can probably give you up mid 40s for the next couple years. He's only 22 or he's 23 or 24. But to get that young guy in LA, I don't think this is a horrible deal by them. They obviously have Spence and Clark coming up. There wasn't a ton of space for Dery, but for the Arizona Coyotes, after trading Despair, after trading Chychrun at the deadline last year, they needed bodies, and especially a guy like Shawn Dery to take a chance on him at only a second round cost. That was a very good deal for the Arizona Coyotes, and Dery has been a pretty big reason why they are so successful this season. Going to Philadelphia and going back to Columbus, we have the Ivan Provorov deal from Philadelphia's perspective. They got a first, 2 seconds in order to get rid of kind of Provorov's contract. And granted, Provorov has been playing good in Columbus. He's actually having one of his better seasons since like his rookie or sophomore years. But when you look at Philadelphia, they had 2 more years at Provorov at around 6.75, and they did take the Peterson contract too. But basically, it was like an equal money exchange for the most part, and they got a first, they got 2 seconds from LA and Columbus. Oliver Bonk was that first round pick that they ended up selecting. He's having a very good year. And they also got a guy like Sean Walker, who they're probably going to be able to flip for another second round pick. So there's a good chance they only took on, I think, like $2 to $3 million in this deal. And they're going to end up getting a first and maybe 3 seconds. I don't think Sean Walker's going to go first. Like, based on how he started the season, he was playing unreal. You maybe could have got a first out of him. I think that's only going to be a second now, especially considering guys like Hanifin and Tanev have more value. But overall, for the Philadelphia Flyers, this was a fantastic deal for Denis Briere in terms of setting them up with so much assets going forward. I absolutely loved it for them. At number 5, I got the Matias Eom trade last year at the deadline. They ended up trading Tyson Barrie, Reed Schaefer, a 2023 first that ended up turning into Tanner Molendyk, and a 2024 first. And obviously, at the end of last season, once Ekholm got there, they were like 13-1-1 to finish the season. They were one of the best teams in the entire league, and Ekholm has been a reliable top pair defenseman. And even this year, he has 15 points in 31 games, so he's a fantastic two-way defenseman for Edmonton. Last year, obviously, helped them out a ton, ended up winning a playoff series. He was a major part of that, and he has like 2 to 3 more years left. Will he age fantastically on that? To be determined. He is like 32 or 33 and has term left. But as of right now, Ekholm was exactly what the Edmonton Oilers needed in terms of a reliable defensive defenseman that could also play a little bit of offense. They have been lacking that, especially since Adam Larson has left. So this was a very good deal for them. And when you look at who they ended up trading, Tyson Barrie has 11 points in 30 games as an offensive defenseman for Nashville right now. He's not getting it done, and he's actively looking for a trade. Remember, there was reports that like his agent and Predators basically said, if you can find the trade, yeah, let's part ways. And Reed Schaefer has 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points in 26 AHL games. He was their 2022 first-round pick. He was like the last 30th or I think he was like 30th overall in 2022. He's not looking that good in terms of AHL production. That is pretty goddamn bad. So I think that's a prospect that people saw, former first-round pick. He's not really panning out like they expected. Tanner Molendyk can turn into something, but if you're Edmonton, it was basically Tanner Molendyk for Matias Eom. Obviously, Tyson Barrie does exist, but they weren't going to re-sign Tyson Barrie, especially after this season. So when looking at that, this was a fantastic deal by Holland. It seems like he makes one fantastic deal, and then he makes an equally bad one. That's kind of a shame. Next up, We got the Predators winning a deal, the Tanner Jeannot deal of last year's deadline. They got the 2025 first-round pick from Tampa, 2024 second, and then 2023 third, fourth, fifth for Tanner Jeannot, who was fantastic in his rookie year. He had 24 goals, 17 assists for 41 points. He was like fifth in Calder voting back in 2022, but he fell off last year, and Tampa still decided to go out and give up basically like an entire year's draft board. Obviously, the picks are different, but when you look at it as of right now, he has 16 points in 56 games with Tampa, playing like 12 minutes, 30 a night, basically playing low third liner, high fourth liner type minutes. He had 0 points in 3 playoff games last year, and especially with this deal, it's not like they gave up the 2023 first and 2023 second, where it was like early 20s for the most part. A 2025 first, with the way Tampa has been trending since obviously 2022 making the Cup final. It is top 10 protected, but that could easily be 12th, 13th overall for goddamn Tanner Jeannot. 2024 second round pick could be 45th overall. Like, that's not ridiculous. Like, the way these future picks are getting dangerous. So when looking at that, Nashville did a fantastic job with the guy that they had eyes on, that, oh, that first year was kind of a fluke. That rookie year was a fluke. Let's move off him because this is such a package, and it was such a good deal for them. At number 3, I got the Gabe Lavald deal from the Winnipeg perspective. Gabe Lavald, point per game right now. Obviously missed a lot of games from a knee injury, but he has 7 goals, 8 assists for 15 points in 15 goddamn games. Iafallo even has 15 points in 33 games. And that Montreal second round pick is very valuable. Montreal is playing very good right now, but that's probably going to end up being a maybe top 40, definitely top 45 pick, assuming Montreal does not make the playoffs. So when you look at that, PLD has 7 goals, 7 assists for 14 points in 32 games. Velarde looks like just straight up the better player right now. Will that maintain? We'll see. But I think even not, considering PLD had no interest in re-signing with Winnipeg, the fact they got so much value and maybe even the better player as well as a pretty high pick, it was a fantastic deal by Kevin Cheveldayoff, and a main reason why Winnipeg does look so good this year. And again, LA's still playing fantastic in their own right, but it's not really because of Pierre-Luc Dubois. At number 2, Alex DeBrincat. First round pick, Donovan Sebrango and Dominique Kubalik. But Kubalik's been shit. He's been pretty bad for the Senators. Sebrango doesn't look like much. And that first round pick is probably going to be the Boston Bruins, which is going to be at the earliest like 24th, 25th overall, even if they lose in the first round. So when looking at this deal, it was a steal. DeBrincat has been fantastic for Detroit. He has been very streaky. His first 6 games, he had 8 goals, 4 assists for 12 points. And now his last 6, he has 4 goals, 7 assists for 11 points. Like, that in between, he needs to be more consistent. No, Detroit fans will tell you that much. But to get an elite goal scorer, he is scoring goals compared to last year. He has 17 goals, 20 assists, 37 points in 36 games right now. To get that elite of a player for basically the 23rd overall pick, a bottom 6 forward, and a prospect that's really not panning out into anything, it's absolutely fantastic for Detroit. And then they sign him for a 4-year, $7.875 million contract, which is like, at this point, decent first liner money. That's not even like elite first line money. It kind of is elite, but it's not like elite. Like, DeBrincat's playing like an 8.5, maybe even $9 million player right now, and you have him in his prime, 25 to 29, signed on that contract. It was great work by Steve Yzerman, and they really took advantage of the leverage that they had over in Ottawa Senators, because DeBrincat was pretty vocal about like where he wanted to go. It wasn't just Detroit, but like he had all the chips. He had the chips for the most part, and Stevie Y took full advantage of that. The Michigan kid ends up playing for Detroit, Michigan. It was just a fantastic deal by the Red Wings, and why it's number 2. And at number 1, I didn't want to put this. I didn't want to put this just because they won the Stanley Cup, the Ivan Barbashev trade. But I forgot how impactful Barbashev really was and how bad the return was. When I was making this list, I was like, oh, Barbashev trade. He was traded for like a first or like at least a second round pick, right? No, he was traded for Zachary Dean, who was a first round pick back in 2021. He was like 30th overall. But right now, the dude has 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points in 25 AHL games for St. Louis's AHL team. Last year, the draft year +2 numbers in the QMJHL wasn't that impressive. So the fact they for a guy that's probably not even going to play 200 NHL games, got a guy like Barbashev that ended up having 6 goals, 10 assists, 16 points in Vegas's final 23 regular season games, then even played at another level in the playoffs. 7 goals, 11 assists, 18 points in 22 games in the playoffs, obviously leading them to the Stanley Cup, playing around 16 minutes a night. In the regular season, he was playing around 18 because they didn't have Mark Stone. Barbashev was a very important piece to the Vegas Golden Knights. If you just put up like half a point per game, I probably would have had him 4th or 5th. But although I think Vegas did run through that playoffs, maybe they go to Game 7 versus Dallas or Game 7 versus Edmonton if they don't have a guy like Barbashev to help round out their forward core. They didn't go to a single Game 7, but it was just such an important piece, and everybody kind of doubted on this deal. I wasn't that high on Barbashev, but he really fit very nicely into the Vegas Golden Knights forward core and obviously produced at a very high level. 18 points in 22 games. That was like third or fourth on the entire team, only behind Eichel and Marchessault. So when looking at that, I think you got to give him the best deal of the 2023 calendar year, considering the direct impact that it had on the 2023 season. But let me know in the comments. Let me run through it again. Dadonov, DeSmith, Korpisalo and Gavrikov, Durzi, Provorov, Ekholm, Janot, Velarde, DeBrincat, and Barbashev. I want to hear from you guys. What are some deals that I may be forgetting? I don't think I forgot a single deal, but what are some of the deals that were the most lopsided in a single team one? And I'll be seeing you in the next one.